Hello, how you doing? It's been a while. The last time I uploaded was my top 10 albums of 2024, and now we're quickly approaching the end of January 2025, and I disappeared into the ether because life decided to life. But thankfully, life is now calming down, so I am back to our regular scheduled programme of New Metal Monday, where I talk about my favourite new releases of the week, and we're doing things a little bit differently this week, where I will be recapping last week and also talking about the new releases from this week. But I just want to say very quickly, thank you so much for all the messages and the comments that I received during my weird absence where I just disappeared for a little while. Everything's fine. I'm absolutely fine and we are back, but I do appreciate you guys sticking by me. If you check out the description box below, I have created a new Metal Monday playlist for 2025 where you will find all of the bands that I'm talking about on these videos. So if you use Spotify, make sure to follow that brand new playlist, which I will have, like I said, linked in the description box below. But if you don't use Spotify, there will also be links to the band's Bandcamp pages, so you can find the music that way. But today I have 4 brand new albums that I want to talk about, 2 from last week, 2 from this week, so let's get on with it. Okay, so the very first album that I want to talk about is definitely the biggest album of the month, and that was from last week with The Halo Effect, March of the Unheard, and this is the second studio album from the melodic death metal band, specifically the Gothenburg metal scene. Now this record is the follow-up to the highly successful debut which was released in 2022, Days of the Lost, which I loved as well, and this record is definitely a worthy successor. The band themselves are made up of pioneers of the Gothenburg scene melodic death metal sound, so think early In Flames and Dark Tranquillity, and this record is definitely a homage to that classic sound. It's very distinctive, it's very catchy but incredibly heavy at the same time. Groove laden, lots of really cool guitar tones, lots of really cool synths in this, and it's incredibly captivating. But the thing that I really liked about this the most is the vocal style. It is predominantly guttural vocals, very distinctive, trademark guttural vocals. And what I also liked about this is the clean vocals don't come into play until about halfway through the record, and that really does change up the tone for the entire record. Yes, it is incredibly heavy and incredibly catchy, and there's something very dark, mysterious and sinister about it, but when the clean vocals come into play, there's a lot of emotion behind them as well, which completely changes the atmosphere of the record. So like I said, this record goes back to the foundations of that early 90s, early 2000s melodic death metal scene, but they also have modern approaches, knowledge and experience to go with it to create an absolutely incredible record. Dense rhythm, rich, intense melodics, some really cool catchy moments, but it goes incredibly heavy at the same time. So if you are a fan of the likes of early In Flames, At the Gates, Dark Tranquillity, this one is definitely for you. But I also wrote a full review for Lambgoat, which breaks down the entire record track by track in a lot more detail, so that will be linked in the description box below if you want to go check that out too. Okay, so next up on my list from last week's releases, I have the Obsidian Resurrection with As Darkness Falls, and this is the debut album from the symphonic blackened death metal band. Now, even though they categorise themselves as symphonic blackened death metal, there's a lot of really cool old school thrash elements throughout this as well, and even though they incorporate a lot of different styles and subgenres, this flows incredibly well. It's an absolute monster of a record at just over an hour long, but it's incredibly dynamic and multi-layered. Very guitar driven, so expect a lot of really brutal riffs, screaming solos, blast beats forever. The drums in this are incredibly intense, and the bass lines are pretty cool in this too. Now, the vocal style is predominantly guttural, but they alternate between those death growls and rasping, blackened kind of screams, and you've also got a lot of really cool thrash elements throughout this as well. And the violins, the piano, the cello, it creates this incredibly melancholic, dark yet evil atmosphere about it. Incredibly catchy, lots of really cool hooks in this. I loved this record. So if you are a fan of the likes of Morbid Angel, Decapitated, Cradle of Filth, Dimmu Borgir, or even if you enjoyed last year's Paganizer or Disparaged albums that I recommended in my top 40 list, this one is definitely for you. This is an incredible record. Definitely get on this, an absolutely amazing debut. Okay, so next up on my list and moving on to this week's releases, I have Thy Kingdom Will Burn with The Loss and Redemption. This is the third studio album from the melodic dark metal band from Finland. Now, their aim on this record was to create very heavy yet melancholic melodic death black metal, and they have certainly achieved that. This is a beautiful, gloomy, despairing record that also completely wipes your face off. This is a face melter of a record, really cool riffs, really cool solos, blast beats, and very dense atmosphere. Now, the vocal style is quite unique throughout this record. There's lots of really cool, haunting spoken word moments that are almost like whispers, but the growls have a bit of a hardcore punk edge to them. They are very much death metal growls, but they have that kind of despairing, kind of distorted punk element to it, and it really works. Plus, the clean vocals in this are incredibly powerful, and it's My Dying Bride that springs to mind when I listen to the clean vocals through this. It's got this very kind of gothic power behind it, but there's something very despairing and distorted about it as well. And they like to change things up a little bit as well. So you've got your fast-paced tracks, but you've also got your cool groove-laden stomps. There's a lot of groove, there's a lot of catchy hooks in this record, and it is highly addictive. Now, like I said, there's a little bit of everything in this record. So if you are a fan of the likes of This Ending, Necrophobic, Dimmu Borgir, Insomnium, a little bit of My Dying Bride, or if you enjoyed the Brazen Tongue records that I recommended in my top 40 from last year, this one is definitely for you. But I love the fact that they are so experimental in this, but it remains melodically rich and incredibly beautiful. Check it out. Okay, so last up on my list, but certainly by no means least, and I'm probably going to pronounce this band incorrectly, but I will try my best. I have Deuce Saboth with Cycles of Death. This is the Ukrainian Baroque black doom metal band. Now, Baroque is a time period when it comes to art and music centered around the 17th century and the first half of the 18th century, where it really focuses on intricacies, detail, and a lot of depth and grandiosity. So when it comes to the composers of the time, think Vivaldi and Bach, that kind of style, and the artwork on that album definitely represents the Baroque period, where it's very dense and atmospheric with a lot of detail and drama behind it. And that's exactly what you get with this record. Now, even though there's a lot of atmosphere and a lot of layers and depth in this, it really does focus on the black metal and the doom metal side of things. With all of the violin and the piano throughout this, it is an incredibly heavy record. So you can expect flurries of brutal riffs, really dense chugging bass lines, thunderous drums, and the vocal style is very rasping and venomous, which is classic black metal. But there's also a lot of really cool spoken word moments that are very haunting at the same time. An incredibly densely atmospheric record that is just dripping with pure evil, but there's also a dark beauty behind it as well at the same time. So if you are a fan of the likes of Griffin, Weald and Woe, with a little bit of My Dying Bride again in there as well, this one is definitely for you. But I loved this. The wee history nerd in me absolutely fell in love with the artwork, I fell in love with the concept, and I certainly fell in love with how heavy and ridiculously intense this record was. Check it out. And that's it for this week's New Metal Monday. Once again, comment down below to let me know what you think of today's releases, and if you have any of your own recommendations, please let me know and I will definitely get them checked out. It's so weird to me how quickly these things come around. It didn't feel like that long ago that I was going through my top 40 albums of 2024, and now we're just starting the cycle again with 2025, and I cannot wait to see what kind of releases come to us this year. Make sure to follow me on all of my social media platforms, reviews, which will also be included in the description box below. And if you also make sure to follow both Lambgoat and the Moshville Times, who I also write in-depth reviews for and articles too. But thank you so much for sticking with me when I disappeared for a month. I'm back now. I will be back on a weekly basis, and I'm hoping to kind of drop in a little bit more than my New Metal Monday very soon, once I get my lack of time management under control. But like I said, thank you so much, and I will see you very soon in my next video.